Never done a pig with retractors and pots before. This is awesome.
That's Tony, Christine.
Kiwi ingenuity there.
Yes.
Kiwi engineering.
Yes. She goes, oh yeah, we've got some little bunch
It's not messy.
What is it? Is it a lamb?
Doctor, I'm losing my retraction.
So, if someone can give Sangha, you want a rest from retracting? Okay.
There's a different view over here.
I have now cut through the pleura
Can you see?
on the right side, and the pleura inside there, there's some pink spongy stuff. What do you think that is?
That stuff?
Yes.
Where? I can't even see.
Matthew, look
You can't see?
like you're in mourning. So in the pleural space, what does the pleura cover? The lung. That is the lung. Now, why does it look so small?
Because it's deflated.
It's deflated. So I have cut through the pleura, and so that allows the lung to collapse. But we're going to, in a little while, we're going to see if we can inflate those lungs for you.
Wait, which one's the one? This?
Yes.
That? And then there's the other one underneath. Is that the other one right there?
So I need to come around there to cut the pleura on
Can
the
we get
other
the
side.
chair over here? So
I got pig hands.
Okay, you want
Wait, we can switch sides.
no, we can just put it. You're good. We just need to get another chair. You're good. We just need to get another chair.
Where do you want a chair?
We have a lot of fun.
Have a good day.
I think you see better there.
Okay. Janet was standing there, so you want her to stand.
I think he needs some suction.
Suction!
Yeah, that would be great. I was just thinking that myself.
See them.
Can we come to that side and see?
You can come this side.
Do we have any kind of paper towel or something that we could?
Yes, we've got paper towels. Tony, paper towels?
My hands
Blood is coming
I know, I'm like,
out.
don't
Cut it.
touch.
Mike.
Can you cut here? Maybe it can open it up a bit more.
Okay, so if I, thank you.
Trash can.
I'm just gonna,
You can jump here. You can jump here.
You can't really see from the side. Oh, he's bleeding. Suction!
okay, so I'm just gonna cut through this big sheet of muscle here. What do you think that is before I cut it?
Diaphragm.
Yeah, so this is, see, it's a complete division between one organ system and another. Can you see that? All the way across. So I'm going to cut through this. We've got to make sure we don't puncture anything.
You don't cut me.
I don't mind puncture you, but it's more
The organs.
the pig organs.
Save the pig organ. Don't worry about my fingers.
Save the pig organ.
Oh, what's that? That just fell. Is that part of the diaphragm that just fell over? Or what is that?
No.
I can't see.
Okay. There, that will help to retract a little bit better.
Is that the liver?
Yes, that is.
Trying to get a better view.
Just be careful you don't fall back.
Okay.
I just want to give that heart a little squeeze.
I know.
Can I massage it?
Yes, you may.
I can get the feedback.
I think, what did you just take out? Was that the
It doesn't look like a heart. It's not, you know.
I know.
Just cut through the diaphragm.
Unlike drawings, everything is just tight. There's no air space, so it's all packed in.
That's a little bit of fat.
Not like drawings.
How much did this pig weigh? Yeah, how much did the pig weigh?
So
Micheline,
Janet,
you want to
About 80
stand over here?
pounds.
this.
Actually, I think you see better here.
Just give us information because Janet actually usually does the pig dissection. We didn't know she'd be in town. Thank you. But as I'm doing it, just what if there's something that I'm missing that I can show them, please tell us. And just
Next year, I'm going to build a stadium for you guys.
Would you please? No.
Risers.
Yeah.
But someone here is the other one with the
The esophagus?
With an S.
Esophagus?
Yeah.
It's behind. That
yeah.
would be
Yeah, it's good to point out where the esophagus is, but you may have to take. Actually,
Well, no, the other one start with the E.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that one.
esophagus,
you
right.
want to work on respiratory?
Yeah, we're doing respiratory right now, so I'm following down.
Don't.
I've opened up
You
the
have
pleura
blood in
so
your
we
hair.
can see the
It's
lungs.
okay.
Trying to breathe.
Okay.
It's touching my hair.
I know.
I would
I know.
not.
That's
Don't
okay.
do that.
So the pleural spaces are open on both sides, so you can see the lungs. What do you notice about the lungs?
They're funny looking.
They're not
Are they
red.
what you expected
They
to
look
see?
like
No.
tofu.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does look like tofu.
yeah. And they look
About it.
kind of small,
You'll
don't
get
they?
tofu in
Yeah.
holy
You
light,
talk like
won't
a,
you?
you talk like a true vegetarian.
No, they. Okay, so they look kind of small because they have collapsed because I opened up the pleural space. So they were being held open by the suction in the pleural space. So if you get a stab wound into there and air gets into your pleural space, your lungs collapse like that. That's called a pneumothorax. So, and you get very, very short of breath. So it's really important then in the hospital they'll put a tube in to get that air out of there so your lung can inflate again. All right, so
Is
to...
that would that be an artery there? What's that? That's
Yeah,
coming out?
so that's coming out. It's either that's the superior vena cava. So that's a vein
The
actually.
vein, but it's
Yeah.
the one that's.
It's a big one.
Oh, it's a handsome superior vena cava.
The Hansen.
It's a good looking one.
It's a good looking one. So we may as well look at that now because that's what's exposed. So the heart, it collects blood coming down from the head and neck. It's coming into the superior vena cava. So you haven't learnt about this yet, but Janet's going to teach you. Do you want to talk about this bit?
Oh, you keep
It's
going.
your bit.
Yeah.
Superior vena cava.
Inferior. We'll go over that.
And see there, it's actually connected to one that comes up from the lower
Look how
legs.
big it is.
And what would that be called? Instead of the superior vena
Inferior
cava?
vena cava.
The inferior vena cava is coming up. So these are the largest veins in the body, and they are bringing the blood from the top of the body and from the bottom of the body, and they go into the first side of the heart. Which is the first side where the blood goes in? It's the left, the right, the right side. So if you think about this pig, you're looking at it's on your left, but for the pig, it's on the right, okay? So
Right atrium.
they go into the right atrium first, and this is the right atrium right there. Then it goes into the right ventricle, which is coming down there, that big muscle there. And then it gets pumped out to the lungs. Now we talked about that. So the artery going into the lungs is the? No?
Pulmonary.
Pulmonary artery, good. And then the vein coming back.
Pulmonary vein.
Sorry, is what?
Pulmonary vein. It's the vein going out and the artery coming back.
No. The artery goes
The
out.
pulmonary artery goes out with
Yeah.
whole blood. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
It comes back.
Is that the one that's the opposite?
exactly.
Yeah, that's
So-
what I was saying.
So
Mixed up.
from the right, that's good. Glad we both get mixed up. That makes me feel better. So the right
Makes us feel
ventricle, exactly. We're all on the same level playing field.
That's right.
So the right ventricle pushes the blood out
Right.
into the pulmonary artery, taking it to the lungs. And there's one strange thing about the blood in the pulmonary artery as opposed to all other arteries.
Deoxygenated.
Now it has a pulse for sure.
Deoxygenated.
It's blue. All the other arteries have red blood because they've come from the lungs. But the blood in the pulmonary artery is going to the lungs, has not picked up the oxygen yet.
So what, for those people who are non-medical, what is sort of strange about that is usually when people speak artery, you think it's red because it's got oxygen in it, right? But this particular artery is blue because it has no oxygen yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't yet got oxygen from the lungs. So
That's right.
like layman's explanation.
So it's all the blood that's come from the body and it goes into the right side of the heart. And the only function of the right side of the heart is to get that blood into the lungs to get oxygen. And then the blood comes back from the lungs full of oxygen in the vein, pulmonary vein. So that is the only vein in the body which has red oxygenated blood. Then it goes into the left atrium, which is actually buried at the back of the heart.
That little leaflet there.
There, that's it. Okay. So if you can look here, you see that little red thing sticking out of the side? That's the left atrium. So the blood comes back from the, it's small because it's collapsed now. So it would be bigger if it had blood in it. So the blood is coming into that, and what does the left atrium do? Where does it send the blood? No, the left atrium is just a wee little thing, and it's to, it sends it down into the biggest and the strongest pump in the heart, and that is this whole part right down to the apex of the heart. This whole part there on the left side, it's the majority of the heart actually. When you look at it from that angle, it's the left ventricle. That is your strongest, biggest muscle in the heart, and that pumps the blood, the oxygenated blood, into which big major artery?
Aorta.
The aorta, yes, aorta, and that goes up in an arch of the aorta and down into the rest of the body. On the arch of the aorta, there's 3 major blood vessels taking the blood up.
When you take the heart out of the cavity, you can see
Is that when we'll see that? Because I